So are we live? Or...
Yep, I will click live now. It is going live.
And I'm seeing that we are live in my
Yes.
notifications.
Nice.
Hello.
Still saying there might be a bit of buffering.
It's okay. It's not that big of a deal. So, hello and welcome back to the Tumblr Refugees stream, where me and
Lena
Ina do talk about various random shit. And
Yep.
Make a mess. Oh well. Right. So which
we'll get to grips with it eventually.
Yeah, we will figure out our groove as we go along.
Just keep your expectations low and you'll enjoy it.
Yep.
Okay. First topic.
Alright, what should we start with? How about the Doom topic? Because
yep, that'd be a good follow-on from last week.
So Doom, Bethesda and id Software have basically announced that they are probably not going to have traditional multiplayer in Doom Eternal. That is a very interesting development because, well, first of all, Doom used to be the game that put online multiplayer on the map, and second of all, because this could mean it's an end of an era. Hello, you here?
I am still here. Sorry, I'm just googling it.
It could mean it's an end of a whole ass era, because we may be reaching the end of one of the major problems with the last generation, to be fair.
Well, I mean, I've never had enough friends for multiplayer, so yeah. I'm not that familiar with it.
Neither have I really, but there was a big issue that multiplayer games started to completely dominate the how do you call it, the gaming field to a very unreasonable degree.
Yeah, hopefully this will allow kind of more single player and story based things to come back,
yeah,
which I am very happy for, hopefully.
Same. Honestly, I think this is just this is just a start of the trend, and we may see we actually may see a lot of very different developments in the gaming industry in the coming, not even years, maybe even months, because the tides are finally shifting. We are leaving a very depressing era of gaming.
But yeah, especially since this is quite a big game as well to be pushing this, and it's actively trying to avoid going for whatever's trendy.
Yep. And we are, how should I say it? We are up for some very big changes in the gaming industry in the next generation, not only because of the shift in gaming styles, but also because of new laws regarding loot boxes and the like. There is gaming already overtook film and most other forms of media as the chief money maker, and this could all very easily lead into something we are just not used to.
It's kind of interesting to watch how the games industry evolves because it's such a new industry
Yeah,
compared to other
uh,
media.
just for comparison's sake, we are about in the 40s. If we compare this, the progress of the gaming media to cinema. So,
Yeah,
gaming has been mainstream for about 30, 40 years.
which
Uh,
is actually insanely short to have the amount of development it's had and to become the top one. It kind of shows quite how ubiquitous it
I mean,
is.
the same thing did happen to movies.
Mm.
The same thing
Uh,
very much happened to movies.
Fun fact, one of the causes for the rise of the film industry was that cinemas started installing air conditioning, so people would just go there on hot days.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's one of
Sort
the
of.
few things I learned in media studies.
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of regarding gaming that PS3 was actually a big. Many people bought PS3 not because of the games, but because it was the most affordable Blu-ray player on the market.
That's insane. And now, kind of, we're almost moving away entirely from physical based films.
Yeah.
I've noticed well, I don't buy DVDs that much. I only have a laptop, and that doesn't actually have a disc drive. But a lot of films, when you buy them, will also offer like a download or like some kind of streaming service to go along with it.
Yeah, I've seen that, but I'm being weirded out by that because I don't even understand how are you supposed to use it all that much.
Yeah, I haven't really used them, but there's also an interesting thing that a television provider in the UK and I think maybe America has it, called Sky have done, which is that they'll give you the streamable version of a film, but then send you a DVD of it in the post as well, so you have both.
Mm-hmm.
Which I quite like because I really don't like the whole fully digital kind of thing.
And the full digital kind of thing is dangerous.
Yeah, the kind of taking the software so far away from a person. It's like I got a Nintendo Switch recently, and I bought a game off eBay because it was cheaper, and I didn't like it, so I went and traded it in. But any of the other games I have, I can't do that. I'm just stuck with it. I don't physically own it. I can't sell it on, and that's actually like
Not only
quite
that,
annoying.
many games that were sold digitally only are now completely unplayable. There is no legal way to play them anymore.
There's also the thing with iTunes.
Yep.
Apple is essentially getting rid of iTunes. I think they're splitting it up into other
Yeah, they're
apps,
splitting it up into music, TV, etc. But
and I think a podcast one. But yeah, they've completely just decided to demolish their platform. So if they
again,
decided not to give it back,
your library will probably not go anywhere this time.
but this time exactly,
That's an important
they
caveat.
could.
This time. We don't know just how far they are willing to take it.
And it is, of course.
Apple are dangerous.
I think at least. Well, the thing is about this debate, people always compare Android iPhones, and you can't really do that because one's an operating system and one is kind of just one company. Like, you might as well just start by comparing iPhones to, say, Samsung phone, because it's a better comparison. But even so, the fact that one of them is an operating system and the other is an entire company kind of shows quite how heavy they are in the industry, and I kind of like to see that change.
Honestly, I can't wait for Apple to have a series of major blunders and just disappear entirely. They are a blight on the industry.
They are. Hopefully they will collapse under their own weight someday.
Hopefully.
but I doubt it because they have this like insane brand loyalty that I do not understand.
A lot of it comes down to, as always, lack of education. People just don't know why Apple is bad.
It's true.
In the ads, they see their friends use it. They see it used in popular media.
So I saw. Well, I didn't actually see. I was speaking with someone, and they were saying to me that one of the reasons most people don't move away from iPhones is most Android operating systems, the layouts are so different, it's hard to translate from one to the other.
It's not even that different anymore.
But exactly, that's changing, and especially things like the Google Pixel have actually quite a similar UI.
All the Xiaomi phones have a very similar UI. The Mi UI is very reminiscent of what I'm trying to say. It's very reminiscent of the iOS by now.
Yeah, so, and also I suppose you'd have to be like already quite tech savvy, as you can often adjust UIs on Androids.
Yeah.
But the kind of person who's not going to change to it because they don't like the UI probably won't know how to do that. They are also like the most expensive phones, like by a good £300 normally.
I think there are Android phones that are more expensive than iPhones, but they're like super top of the line. The kind of phones that are basically desktop PCs in a little package. It's insane.
Which is insane. As I think I mentioned it before, but my phone has more RAM than some laptop. Like, it's more powerful than a Chromebook.
Yep.
It's like, why get a Chromebook, to be honest? You've just got a larger screen.
Exactly. And this is going to escalate again.
Well, apparently there's some buffering going on, but I knew that was going to happen because it did warn me.
There is inevitably going to be buffering going on because we are in two different countries and people are watching us from other places too, and it's going to be a little bit messy.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be intolerable.
Yeah. Moving on from that, we have some good news from North Korea, apparently. So, there's been ongoing correspondence between Trump and Kim Jong-un, and the state propaganda channels of North Korea said they had an excellent discussion. And North Korea are agreeing to a slow but eventual denuclearization.
It's also, though, apparently quite vague of the specific of what they discussed, because it was actually personal letters.
Yeah.
But hopefully it's nothing too worrying, and it is just an actual good piece of news for once.
Trump... I don't like Trump. I wanted to like him, but he's turned to be even more divisive than I predicted he would be. He is a very weird president, but one thing that you cannot deny is that it's probably because of Trump that we are actually seeing some actual progress in the negotiations between North Korea, South Korea, and the USA. for the first time in decades.
Yeah, it is kind of, unfortunately, a bit of a mixed bag. This is a very big positive, but there are, of course, some negatives. But also, I kind of think a lot of the negatives are things that might have earlier been ignored under different presidents for various reasons. Because I guess in kind of society now, we're a lot more hyper aware of what's going on politically. Whereas before, things kind of were mentioned a lot vaguer. And it's been over like the past 5 years, and the 24-hour news cycle existed before that, so it's not entirely that. But I think we're kind of reaching this peak of where people kind of want to know everything that's going on politically, which I think is quite a massive positive. But also, it does have a bit of a negative bias at times.
The problem with the news, this has been a thing with the news since forever, basically. But people focus on negative news more than on the positive ones because negative news sell.
It's true, humans do just have a negative bias. And that is just because, well, genetically it's better to notice the things that are going wrong so you don't die. But I guess in a modern context that's not really applicable. But the psychology remains, unfortunately. Which I guess actually kind of leads me on to something completely not related to anything else. But I was thinking about Cyberpunk 2077 again.
Yeah.
And kind of, well, Cyberpunk in general as well. And that kind of concept of transhumanism.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of starting, I think, to on not so sci-fi. I think as a species, we're kind of becoming so far removed from our evolutionary beginnings that it seems very probable to end up like that. And with the reason that it comes back to Cyberpunk 2077 was because I was thinking about how when people are remaking sci-fi films now, they keep having to shove them further into the future because we're kind of catching up with our species' own predictions.
Remember that Cyberpunk 2077 is based on the game, the tabletop game Cyberpunk 2020.
Yeah, exactly. So if they called it
2020 is next year.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy to consider because I remember when 2010 just happened.
I do, but I was 12.
I was.
But it's like
how old I was? I was 21. Well, turning 21.
But yeah, it's like you notice it in kind of not even that old films. I mean, Back to the Future came out in 1985, I think.
Yep,
and that's the distant future of 2015. And that was, what, 30 years? And like, we've kind of realized 30 years isn't that soon, that far. And then you get things like, that are even worse, like 2001 Space Odyssey, where at the turn of the millennium, we're supposed to be in the stars.
See, this whole thing with the millennium craze, that was very much a fad.
It's a very interesting fad, because time is entirely man-made. But we all went a bit crazy at the fact that it changed from 19 at the beginning to 20.
Because we all went crazy not because 19 has changed to 20, but because 1 changed to 2.
Yeah,
let's be honest,
it's even smaller.
We haven't seen it in literally thousands of years.
Yeah, and it's also something that's kind of that was happening in living memory, because even centuries are kind of like quite a big change.
Yep.
Because not many people are going to see those, but in time, millennia is just no one alive or before that, or even whole countries would have been around to see it.
Yep.
But also, it's completely made up because time isn't real. Okay, what were we on topic before about? Because I got distracted talking about psychology and time.
Kim Jong-un?
Ah, yes, the very natural segue there.
Well, it is kind of a natural segue. It all relates back onto itself.
That's fine. That's what people will come to expect from us, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's kind of...
I've never stayed on topic in my life, and I'm not starting now. Oh, actually, I have something almost entirely unrelated, but I'm going to bring it back to loot boxes. But I was in an arcade today, British seaside arcade, so there were 2p machines. Do you have something
machines?
similar in Russia? So it's like you put coins in a machine and they go like through a slot onto like a moving platform, and then it pushes more coins down, and then like you try and knock prizes out of the machine. I have no idea if you have those.
I would like you to explain again, sorry.
So you put your coins in, and they go onto like a moving conveyor that then like pushes more coins off.
Oh, yeah, I know those things.
Yeah, so I was playing with those, and I was they have like a section at the end of this arcade, and that one's 18 plus, and it's like all your like proper like casino machines, and I don't know what else. I've never been in there, but it's 18 plus. But then you have like the entire like other 2/3 of this arcade, and that's apparently perfectly fine for children, even though they are essentially the same thing. You're still gambling. And like you could still easily blow through hundreds of pounds if you're particularly invested in it. But like again, trying to relate it back to something actual, with loot boxes is kind of where does gambling end? And like at what point do you have to step in and say, no, this isn't suitable for children?
This is a very interesting question because I've mentioned this before, but Jesus, lost my train of thought, sorry. I mentioned it before, but you can... Where do you draw the line? Because there are many games with elements of what you could theoretically stretch to include gambling.
I believe when you were talking about it before, you used the example of random number generators. And
yeah, many
at what
games
point
have...
that
So many
too
games
far.
have RNG mechanics.
Yeah, like any game.
Even the game I'm playing right now, it has RNG mechanics. D&D has RNG mechanics.
It's just natural.
Yeah, you throw the dice. The outcome changes. Is it just because we're betting money?
So it's like, is it because you have like something to risk monetarily, or do you draw the line because it's psychologically damaging?
But okay, is what I'm doing when I'm playing Diablo. Say Diablo, you know Diablo. Diablo is in his example because Diablo features random RNG mechanics at the core feature. That's the meat of the game. Enemies drop random loot. You hear?
Yes, I can hear. I thought you were still talking.
Enemies drop random loot with randomized stats. And how do we argue that? So
yeah,
loot boxes are gambling, but Diablo-like games have been shown to be addicting because of how their mechanics work.
I kind of wish Diablo was more addicting because I haven't played it for about 2 weeks. That was a terrible joke and not commentary. But yeah, so if it's still causing that psychological damage, then you can basically argue that we should also stop that. And then kind of you destroy the entire games industry.
Yep, I've been arguing that as well because, again, we are giving the government the leeway to argue for us what is destructive and what is not.
I think if it was going to be regulated, it would more be suitable to be that they have to declare it more than outright get rid of it. Which is something I noticed actually turned out recently in the Google Play Store. It's kind of a bit hidden. You have to like open the information and scroll down, and right at the bottom it tells you if there are in-app purchases and what monetary value they go from. So most of them will be like 0 to stupid amounts like £100, which is frankly ridiculous for a mobile game. But the information's there. It's just then on people, especially for like the parents of kids, to manage that themselves.
Because all of this is being done on the pretense of protecting the kids.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like after a certain point, it's on parents.
Explain to people why this is bad? Do I even need to?
It's more kind of, it is just a slippery slope kind of thing.
But that's slippery slope, even a fallacy. Like, look at fucking Desmond. If we are talking slippery slopes, you remember Desmond?
Yeah. Yes, I am aware of Desmond. Unfortunately,
that shit's depressing.
It is depressing, especially since. Should we give background on that in case people don't know?
Yeah,
let's talk about that. Screw it. We were like, no, that's not
because there's actually
heavy,
new developments on the Desmond situation, aren't there?
Yes, but I'm not exactly sure of the specifics. But I can do a quick rundown of the history.
Mm-hmm.
So, Desmond is amazing. I believe he started at 8 years old. An 8-year-old drag kid. So he does drag, which is, if you don't know, a typically gay subculture of dressing as kind of an extreme of femininity and occasionally masculinity, but no one really cares about drag kings for some reason. But he came onto the scene. He was about 8 years old. And there's nothing wrong with a child exploring their gender identity, obviously. Except it started to go to quite a dark place. His parents basically forced him, or at least encouraged him, to do an 18+ event where he was doing typical drag queen things like catwalks and dancing and slut drops, for adults who were throwing money at him. And a lot of people were kind of trying to dismiss this, saying, no, it's okay, he's just exploring his sexuality. And other more sane people went, yeah, he's 8. And other more sane people went, why are you pimping out a child? Your own child, also both of his parents are unemployed, which is interesting.
And they are basically living off his fame.
Exactly, so they're not exactly going to let him go. I believe DPS did get involved, but I think they actually okayed it.
Yeah,
or just decided. Yeah. So yeah, you can then cover the new developments, because I haven't actually heard of them specifically.
The new developments in that he was featured on a blog by a Tumblr member. What the fuck are you doing, cats?
We interrupt this incredibly serious discussion to give you cat flavor and everything.
Do you know what Nambla is?
Nambla, Nambla?
Yep.
I know the name, and I know roughly what they stand for, but I don't actually know what the acronym stands for.
North American Boys Lover Association.
Ah, yeah. Brilliant. Essentially pro-pedophilia, if I remember correctly.
Yep, pedophilia advocacy group.
Oh. I have kind of what are considered atypical views on paedophilia, and I am very much against that. Because there's a very
Look,
different...
I'm all for pedophiles going out to get help.
Exactly,
Yeah,
but
get in
it
treatment.
shouldn't be normalized in that way.
Not encouraging their disorder.
Exactly,
And
it's
not
like
advocating for them to actually be able to fuck kids.
Exactly, like you wouldn't encourage any other kind of mental health disorder in that way. Like you wouldn't encourage. I'm trying to think of a good description that I don't have a known argument against, because my first thought was you wouldn't encourage someone to self-harm, but there are times when self-harm is a better alternative. Never touch kids. That is never the better alternative.
There is self-harm and there's harm to other people.
Yeah, okay, harm to other people. So it would be more like encouraging someone who are having violent, intrusive thoughts to just go out and stab that person.
Yep.
That's not helping them. Whereas, not necessarily normalizing pedophilia, but normalizing being able to get help,
yeah,
that's only really going to be beneficial. Because then they're not going to do anything. They'll get better. Hopefully. I mean, of course, all therapies are not 100% guaranteed, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, but like the same can be said about sociopathy and intrusive thoughts, shit like that.
Exactly. And like the thing with pedophilia is if you do recognize it in yourself and you try and get treatment, even if you've done nothing wrong, it's purely these like horrible intrusive thoughts, people won't help you because they instantly assume you're a threat.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, so there are people who are basically being denied treatment.
Are not trying to get help.
Yeah, they want it to be legal. I think they push... Oh.
Yeah, they want it to be...
Sorry, the stream cut out entirely. They push for things, I think, like lowering the age of consent.
They want to abolish the age of consent.
That was it.
And they think that children are capable of consent.
I mean, the fact we have, like, statutory rape laws in most countries kind of disproves that. But then,
they think those laws are as bad as laws against gay people.
It's also kind of this idea of turning it into an identity.
Yep.
When it's not. It's a psychiatric disorder. And once you kind of tie your identity to your disorder, it makes it incredibly hard for you to get better. Because you've kind of told yourself it's intrinsic and therefore can't be changed.
Yep. Look, even if it is intrinsic, it cannot be changed, you shouldn't act on it. Lots of shit is intrinsic and cannot be changed.
Yep. Most people will probably have anger responses in their life, regardless of mental health. But also most people know you don't act on those. And like the answer isn't to suddenly decide everyone should just act on those.
Yep.
Oh.
Look, violent impulses are normal. We just learn to not act on them. You know what's also normal? Shitting on the street. Also something we don't do anymore.
Because we know better. And we know it spreads diseases.
Yep.
Oh, whoops. Come on. There we go. It was just deciding not to stream at all. It wasn't just buffering. Okay, let's go on to something slightly more positive than don't abolish the age of consent. But I can't think of anything.
Let's see the news again.
Women's football, huh? Who cares about that?
It exists.
It sure does, and apparently England won 3-0 against Cambodia. But for some reason, Cambodia was the trending Twitter tag. I assume Cambodians were the only ones watching the women's football.
That could very much be the case.
Well, I mean, I didn't know there's like women's football going on, and I'm English, so I also don't own a TV, but I don't see how that's relevant. Even if I did, I would be incredibly indifferent towards sport.
I use a TV instead of a monitor for my PC.
Well, I just don't own a TV, and there was no point in me ever buying one, really.
That makes sense.
I get all of my news from random posts online, which is a terrible way to get your news. Do not do that. Look actively into the news if you want to be educated. I mean, it's not that I hate women's football specifically. I hate all sports equally.
That's the spirit.
I like playing sports is the thing.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it's way more fun. Go out and play sports, don't watch it. It's boring as hell.
Playing sports is good for you. Watching
It
sports
is healthy.
is not.
It is mind-numbing and contributes specifically to things like football to a massive economy that just shouldn't exist. I hate how expensive football is.
See, at least football gives money back to the community.
I mean, yeah, I guess. It is slightly better, but like, just no one's salary should be that high. That's insane. I mean, to be fair, you normally stop at like 30 because you've ruined your body.
Again, it's voluntary.
I mean, yeah. But also, like, I don't know, how equipped is a 16-year-old to understand they're probably going to permanently destroy their ankles?
That's true.
And then if you want to get even worse...
Most of them are pushed to...
Yeah.
By their parents.
Especially to, like, professional level. But also, what's even worse than footballers for that is gymnasts.
And
gymnasts are awful.
And ballet. And skating.
Yeah. Because it's like, it's impressive to watch. But it kind of so harmful to their bodies, I kind of find it distracting. Like, yeah, it's cool they can do flips like that, but you know, by the time they're like 40, they're not going to have any cartilage.
Yep. And we just see the successful ones.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you don't see the ones who broke a leg and now can't do the thing they ruined their body for instance. And it's because, of course, they have, like, a choice to an extent to do it. So, like, you shouldn't just straight up ban sport. But...
You can't ban sports.
No one will let you ban sports, no matter how much I want that.
You can't blanket bans don't work, we know that.
Yeah, exactly.
On things
so it's
people
more...
do not consider violent.
Exactly, it's more kind of awareness that it's that dangerous. Because, like, the single most dangerous sport is cheerleading. Which isn't really surprising when you remember it's throwing people, like, 20 foot in the air.
Yep.
That tends to hurt when you land badly.
And cheerleading is not even recognized as sport in most places. And cheerleaders are heavily exploited because of that.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see, where can we go on from cheerleading? Sports. Other sport. There are a lot of sports. I don't know, how damaging is curling?
Curling is damaging primarily to your dignity. It's a very silly looking sport.
It is, but that shouldn't have killed me as much as it did. Well, at least I'm having fun with this.
I actually played a game of curling, I think.
Oh? Any fun?
I don't know. That's boring as shit.
My favorite sport when I was forced to play sports at secondary school was basketball. But I'm 5'2", so I'm not exactly like the model basketball player. Yeah, my dad apparently used to play a lot of basketball, but he's 6'4".
My dad was a weightlifter and a boxer.
My mum was a gymnast, but never professional. Although apparently, one of the people who went to her gymnastics school went on to be the gymnastic stunt double for Mila Jokovic in The Fifth Element.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, weird link, but yeah, she went on to go on and be an actual gymnast in films. And I was like, why didn't you do that? And my mum was like, I valued having legs.
That's very fair.
Yeah. It's always good to have legs, but my mum does have arthritis now. But I'm pretty sure that's because of something else. But also, I doubt gymnastics help.
My dad was basically in perfect physical condition until his death.
Huh.
He worked out a lot. And, you probably would have made it farther if he stayed in sports instead of going into business and getting himself killed by the Russian mafia.
It's still so amazing to me that is a genuine story.
Yeah. Shit's weird.
Yeah. Well, it's I just randomly discovered, I'd known my roommate for, a couple of months at that point, and then we just suddenly discovered that his dad, died. And we were all, very confused, because we'd just kind of been running under the assumption he had a dad. And he didn't, but that was alcohol.
I assume most people have dads by default.
Yeah, generally, I would say about 100% of people have a dad. Whether they're alive, that's probably less than 100%.
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain less than 100% people have a dad who is alive.
I'm pretty sure not even 100% of people have a dad, because some people have a mom.
If we're talking purely dads, though. Okay, and then also, kind of anyone who's maybe 70 and up probably doesn't have a dad. I'd say 80, at least, because I do actually have great-grandparents. But my family is pretty young, even, considering the fact I'm relatively young, my family is young. I think my dad had me when he was 19, 20.
Oh, that's very young.
Yeah. I'm 21 currently, and it's terrifying to think of.
Imagine being a parent right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's I'm older than my dad was when I was born, and that's kind of terrifying because I couldn't raise a child.
My parents were when I was born.
Well, you see, I had a friend in secondary school, and her mum had her, I think, 35 or 40, and she had a younger brother.
Isn't right.
Yeah, so her mum was in her 50s, and my mum was in her 30s, and it was just such a kind of culture shock, because we're kind of the two extremes.
Yeah. It's
that sure is a thing. We need more topics.
We do need. Maybe I'll find something for you.
Or I will just keep randomly bringing up parts of my life. When I was 2 years old, my mum threw a Jelly Babies party for me, which consisted of her and her friends drinking Jello shots and me and a friend of mine sitting in a paddling pool literally filled with jelly. I have seen photos. I look very pissed off.
I'm
Because
sorry,
I was-
what the fuck?
It literally, yeah, like it's just this like massive
Sorry,
paddling
what the
pool
fuck?
and two like toddlers just sitting covered in jelly.
French, I'm sorry, but that's probably the wildest story you've told me yet.
Really? Because I always think that's like, I think it's funny, but it's relatively tame.
It's not tame.
like-
Nothing about it is tame. You were fucking sitting in the pool of jello.
I need to see if I can find the photos. Because, like, it's amazing. And then I will post them online so people can see. But yeah, it's like the amount of jelly you'd need to do that as well. Like, it wasn't a particularly full paddling pool, but there was, like, enough for us to be, like, decently covered.
That is so weird.
That would have been in, I guess, 2000? The year 2000.
In the year 2000, I went to Spain, and then we celebrated the millennium in Thailand.
That's cool. That's not being covered in jelly, though, so who had more fun?
Yeah, probably you.
Okay, let's see if we can stretch this out for 14 more minutes and hit an hour. Other memories from my childhood. For a brief period of time as a child, I thought I was a sheep. I would try and eat grass. That's about it. I eventually stopped believing I was a sheep. And then later also, like, developed a fear of standing on grass.
A fear of what?
I didn't like the feel of grass, and apparently I'd, like, throw, like, tantrums if I had to walk on grass. So, like, people would have to, like, lay blankets out so I could sit on it. I was, like 2 years old, so...
Oh, okay.
Which was,
2-year-olds are weird.
Yeah, 2-year-olds are not quite people.
They should have human rights.
It's like, you know that Onion article where it's like, recent research discovers babies may be related to humans. I mean, they have more bones than us. They have more neurons than us. That's some pretty big swings. Yeah, I don't think they're human. Well, apparently the video resolution is off.
A human, maybe they are not human too.
I mean, do we really have proof that babies are human?
We don't.
I mean, what's DNA? Don't think about that. DNA's fake.
DNA is absolutely fake. It's just a guy.
Have you ever seen DNA?
No, it's just a guy who saw a spiral staircase and neat. Let's do that.
This gives me a great idea. Although I have actually seen DNA because I did biology. So I can confirm DNA might exist, but I was like told it was DNA, so who knows? It was just like, because it was like extracting the DNA from plant matter, so it's just kind of this white fluffy stuff, and that's apparently plant DNA.
Sounds very suspicious.
Yeah. I also remember torturing water fleas into having caffeine-induced heart attacks.
What?
So, like, they're also called Daphnia, like, just these little water creatures, and we discussed the ethical implications of it as well. Like, they don't have a central nervous system, so they couldn't feel anything, so, like, it was kind of ethical to do this to them. But we gave them caffeine concentration, like various concentrations of caffeine, and then we'd look at them through a microscope, and like they're transparent because they're water creatures, so you could count their heartbeats. And we like kept upping the caffeine, and a lot of them kind of died from it. But yeah, that was fun.
I think I would have nightmares from that.
Yeah, they are like absolutely tiny, and also at that point, my mum had a lot of fish, and we'd like feed like that kind of creature to the fish, so I was kind of a bit distant from it. Some people were getting quite upset because their water fleas had died, and other people were cackling manically because 14-year-olds don't have souls.
14-year-olds don't have souls, I can confirm.
So we've determined on this stream, babies aren't human, and 14-year-olds don't have souls. We're doing good. This has become a science podcast, and we are giving you cold hard facts. Babies are a lie. Have you ever seen a baby? Thought not.
I have held a baby.
No, that was something else. You're imagining it.
That was probably just a weird bald cat.
There was just a doll. Cats. I was going to say cats aren't real. Babies aren't real. Cats also aren't real.
I have a cat right here. Say something,
But are you sure? We've run out of ideas so much we're resorting to cats to try and get content.
We'll get better ideas later. We just need to prepare a little better.
I mean, we spent 2 whole minutes googling the word news, so I think we're prepared. I say as if we haven't been stalling while I just spout whatever comes to mind for the past 10 minutes.
Well, you have interesting things to say.
I'm gonna run out eventually. I'm only 21 years old. I only
and I'm 30 and I have a lot of things to say.
Alright, your turn.
I had an imaginary friend who lived in a big metal box that sat outside our dacha. You know what dachas are?
No, I do not.
Dachas are this weird Soviet thing where they would give you a small plot of land with no utilities, no electricity, nothing.
Oh, okay.
You would build primarily they were to build gardens in, so people
kind of like allotment.
Yeah, so people could grow their own food.
The UK has quite a lot of those because of World War II. It was kind of encouraged to grow your own food for that.
Yeah, because otherwise people would die of scurvy.
Yeah. I sometimes panic and think I have scurvy and then just desperately eat oranges. There's no sign I have scurvy, but I just kind of think, I haven't eaten an orange for a while. Probably have scurvy.
I think a lot of people in our generation were kind of scared of
it's it's not even a particularly scary disease.
But pirate stories make it sound scary.
Yeah, and it's the pirates were going for years without oranges.
Yeah.
And other citrus fruits. And vitamin C. I recently got accused of having alcohol-induced jaundice by my brother.
Yeah.
Because my skin has a slight yellowish undertone.
Look, I'm a full-blown alcoholic and I don't have jaundice.
Yeah, exactly. I was no, this is just the color of my skin. I do not have jaundice. But he was very adamant that I had jaundice. But he didn't know what the word jaundice was. So he was just accusing me of being an alcoholic.
I see.
Because, the week before I got kind of drunk. So obviously, I had jaundice after that.
So, speaking of my imaginary friend, he lived in a big fuck-off metal box that we just called a container. It sat outside our dacha, and it had a shit ton of wires and stuff in it. Just full of sharp things the kid could harm themselves on.
Oh, that's a bit dark.
Yeah, and I walked around it and talked to an imaginary friend that lived there.
Huh, neat. I think I had an imaginary friend, but the only one I can remember was actually just a ghost. And I don't know if I believe in the supernatural, but apparently when I was a child, our house was haunted by the ghost of a little girl that I apparently played with.
Huh.
So more likely
That's...
imaginary friend.
Yeah, haha. Yeah.
But like there was like one story my mom told me where my dad went upstairs to go and get me, and our bathroom at that time didn't have a door, it had a curtain, and he could like see legs kicking, like as if someone was sitting on the toilet. And then I walked out of a different door and was like, "Oh, hi, Dad." And he was like, "I've finally seen her." But I have no idea if that's just my family fucking with me, because I do not put it past them to just make up shit about my childhood.
Your family sounds wild sometimes.
Have I told you about the dolls? I have a fear of dolls. So my mum would move dolls around my room to convince me they were moving and alive.
Once a plushie I had, an elephant plushie, inexplicably traveled from one room to another without anyone but me being home.
Oh. It's like I used to have like crippling like nightmares about dolls as well. And I remember one time I was like tidying my room, so there were a lot of bin bags. And I'd like stacked them outside the room. So my mum just placed a doll on the very top. So I opened the door and it was just staring me in the eyes.
Does your mom secretly hate you or something?
I wonder that a lot. But I think she just has the worst sense of humor ever and thinks psychological trauma is funny. And I'm just trying to think of other things my mum's done to psychologically traumatize me. That is a dark hole. Okay, someone else talk about their psychological trauma but me.
Most of my psychological trauma is more depressing than quirky.
Yeah, that's the problem. Most of the rest of it is just kind of sad.
Let me think. I'll think of something fun. I have a lot of stories.
Yeah, it's just coming up with them. You're like, oh, my life is so interesting. Okay, now speak about it.
I remembered that for some reason my mind goes back to the time when I tried cheap Russian drugs.
Oh?
Yeah, they're called spice. Because
I think we might have had that.
It's basically harmless grass laced with an LSD-like substance that you smoke.
Oh, okay.
And back when I tried them with my ex and my two friends who were pretty serious drug addicts,